Oh, we are live. We are live, and they have not one thing up yet because they are as awesome as we are. Let me see here. They had been doing so well. They really had. They were like, we are on top of things. We are going to be awesome. And then they may have been having it's Thursday. They were like, look, we were on top of it most of this week. And then Thursday done happened, and, we were what had happened was our intern done went over. Now, I will tell you that I just had the most crazy thing happen, and what I might do, if you guys will indulge me, uh, possibly, is what we might do while we are waiting if as people trickle in, to viewing is what we might do is that, we might start looking at, the Take Care of Maya lawsuit. Apparently, they are live streaming that, so I might edit this, but they are live streaming that particular trial in that case. So, while we are waiting for, Gareth to start because they are being a pain in my buttocks right now. They are. They really are. We are waiting. We are waiting, as they would say. But, we are working on so many things. We are trying to get that going. I don't know what is going on with them trying to get these things out. I wish they would have a set time, but they rarely do. I don't understand why they don't have a set time. I don't know if the court, doesn't let them have a set time, for the footage to come out. I don't know if it's because the defense is getting ready, uh, to start. I don't know. It's hard to figure out when to, set these streams up when you can't figure out if the footage is coming out. That's the hard thing with this is I try to figure out, okay, when is the footage going to be here? Hello. Uh, and then it's good morning, making law simple network, all professional-ish. But I do have exciting news, and I'm going to try to figure out where I'm going to put this, new case, but I think I have an idea, so I'm gonna run it past all of you guys, or several of you guys. But they are live streaming. Law and Crime are, very late adding uh, footage people, they are live streaming the case that I was talking about earlier this morning in Mornings with Mo. They are live streaming the Maya Kowalski case. So I am thinking what I am going to do is that 8 p.m. slot that I normally put the Delphi case in, since I am collaborating with Nicholas now from Nicholas Starro Trial Watch, what I think I am going to do now is put the Maya Kowalski case down in that 8 p.m. slot and then work on longer stream times on the weekends for that one because I want to follow that case. As a, um as having complex regional pain syndrome, as hating DCFS, because they sometimes do a good job, but most of the time just do a crap job, uh, in my experience. It is the nexus of 2 things that I generally dislike. So, I genuinely want to follow that case, and I think it would be an interesting case because I want to see how the state defends itself against this family. Um, the lawyers seem like they have done a really good job. Now, of course, I'm watching it. I've watched the documentary, so I'm sure it could have been, edited and such. I mean, we all watched Making a Murderer, and I don't know if it was just me, but I saw Making a Murderer, and I thought that guy looked all the guilties. I mean, I don't know. I thought he looked all the guilties. I didn't think he appeared very innocent. But, he lost me when you lost me when his initial thing was like, "Look, what had happened was we soaked the cat in, gasoline and accidentally threw it over the bonfire." I was like, "Sir, you're a degenerate, and the fact that you were falsely accused of grape and got, let out because of DNA was God helping you. The fact that you also lured another woman to unalive her is you taking God's free pass and squandering it." I well, yeah, it just look, maybe he just never seemed it I never bought into the full, conspiraciosity thing, but that was just me. I fall into the thing of you have to believe that human beings are capable of pulling off a grand conspiracy, and we are a group one person is smart enough to pull off a conspiracy. A group of people tend not to be able to pull off a democracy, so let alone a conspiracy, in my humble opinion, but I am but a humble redheaded loudmouth on the internet, and they still don't seem to be able to put up the new footage. So I did promise you guys a new clip, and I think I have figured it out, but I have found the most, Gareth clip that from my favorite show. Hopefully, I don't get copyright struck, but it's only 5 minutes, so let's see if it will play. Or 5 seconds. Oh, it won't play. No, of course not. Never mind. I boomered it up. I will figure it out, though. One day it will work. Maybe I'll just pull it up on the actual YouTubes because we are bored here. I am bored. I have full-on ADHD today. My mother-in-law is coming in because the boys have, uh, a g a grandparents' day, what is it? A grandparents' day program. Oh, yes. Disenchanted may be my, favorite show ever. I may be watching it on repeat right now for reasons I can't quite explain. I honestly don't it I love Lucy. I really for the life of me, I just but this is how I feel like Gareth just feels like his dating goes all the time. Oh, wait.
Sad.
But this is Gareth dating.
Sad.
Ew, look at that gross crying pig. I have no interest in it.
Me neither. Twinsies.
Get out of here!
But I think I'll just save this on tap, for every time that Gareth pisses me off. I'll save that. So I'll just save this until I figure out how to save it for every other thing. But hopefully they will put up the new daggone footage because it's ticking me off. Or we might Oh, it is awesome. I love the new season. I will say I did love the new season. It was all the awesome, but I am a giant nerd. So, what I might do now since we are waiting, we might, start looking at so we might start with the opening statements with the Take Care of Maya stuff since they are taking forever with, Fry, I don't even you Fry, you look like you drank all the booze last night. So I will keep an eye on whether they put up the law and the, Gareth Pursehouse stuff here soon because you would think that they would have the footage up, but it seems like yeah, he tends to sleep like a drunken frat boy or, um, Jonestown the morning after. He really does. But so right now we are waiting for the footage to come up of day 10 in the morning, and so what we are looking at right now are the opening statements of the Take Care of Maya trial that I just got done talking about. I was unaware that Law and Crime were going to be covering this case. Now that I am aware, I will probably be attempting to cover this either during the weekend or at, 8 PM in the evenings, some evenings, I'm not quite sure. I will have to figure it out. My mother-in-law is on her way in, so this weekend is a bit iffy as to what I'm going to be able to accomplish. So that is what it is. Now, this is live. We does look like we do have, uh closed captioning, so that is good, and I am keeping an eye out to see when they will actually put up footage. I do not know for some reason. They were on a roll getting footage out, but let me stop talking and we will get this going. So again, for those of you who did not watch Mornings with Mo, this is the case of, if you were able to watch the documentary on Netflix, this is the case of the, Kowalski family, so the daughter, Maya, was diagnosed with complex regional pain syndrome. It is the pain syndrome that I have in my left leg. It's basically your body, you're very sensitive to touch. You feel an inordinate amount of pain. You have flare ups. Uh, it, basically, you have a lot of pain. The mother was accused of basically having Munchausen's by proxy. The hospital took over custody and care of the daughter, would not allow mother to even see daughter or spend time with daughter. And, in order for the father to even have time with daughter, had to basically renounce the mother. The mother, in one of the final hearings that she was alive for, asked to give daughter a hug. The judge said no. Mother did end up unaliving herself. Family decided to sue because hospital, all this time while basically telling the court and DCFS that the mother was, basically Munchausen by proxy. Maya didn't have anything wrong with her, that they were all faking and it was mental disease. We're charging the family with treating her for complex regional pain syndrome, medical codes. So, the family decided to sue, and at the end of the documentary, uh, basically, it was left that it was kind of in legal limbo, but now they are able to sue. So while we are waiting to see when they will put up footage, I decided we would at least watch this because we cannot have a not trial going. We get shakes, we get twitchy. The only one that can sleep is Fry, and really, Fry can sleep through anything.
Does anyone wish to take a break now, or are we ready to proceed for opening statements? And for those on Zoom, I'm sorry I didn't have that mic open.
Now, I believe this is Maya.
Apologize.
That's the
Okay,
son,
so we are all
and
good
that
to
is the
go for
husband.
next
The
90
husband was a
minutes?
firefighter. The mother was a
Mr. Anderson, you have the
nurse.
floor, sir.
No, so typically, now there are so there's two different types of complex regional pain syndrome. There's the type that is precipitated or brought on by an injury that's kind of like mine, where they believe that the body's sort of pain cycle just goes into overdrive. And then there's Maya's that really just kind of came out of nowhere. And that's kind of kids, it seems to be precipitated by absolutely nothing a lot. There there's not a lot of known by about complex regional pain syndrome. Again, even the name is kind of like, we have no idea. It's complex, we have no idea, and there's not a whole lot of funding. It's, um it's rare. It does typically affect more women than, men. It's just odd. It's a weird thing. I think October or I don't know if we have a month. I can't be look, I for this almost entire year, I was pretending I didn't have it, so I kind of avoided looking into it, to be honest with you.
Plaintiffs will prove that from July 7th, 2015 through January 13th, 2017, Johns Hopkins missed a diagnosis of complex regional pain syndrome on 7 different occasions when Maya was in for their care. We will prove that they misdiagnosed Maya's symptoms from October 7th through the end of the year, wrongfully accusing Beata and Jack Kowalski of child abuse, and alleging and attempting to show that Maya had a mental disorder. She was crazy. She was making it up. We'll prove that they realized their error pretty quickly. And instead of apologizing, saying we're sorry,
Oh, well, that went well. All 5 seconds in, someone's already crying. The dad's like, "Screw you." I mean, the dad. Yeah, they did. See, what happens with complex regional pain syndrome and is that you will have good days, like I said. So, my base level pain, uh, is at a 4. It's at a 4, and I can kind of work through that. So, uh, most days, 4 or 5. So, it never gets to 0, but, you know, I can work through that. I can, go through that. I don't have a day where I don't hurt, but I can work through it. So, people see you and they see you doing stuff, but the problem is that if if the doctors were seeing her doing stuff, then if they saw her on a day where she wasn't screaming out in agony, then they could say, "Oh, well, you're doing stuff now. Why aren't you screaming out? If you're so much in pain, what gives?" And basically that's what they were doing. They're like, "What gives? Why aren't you screaming now? I don't get it. You're a liar. You don't have this." You know, and the sad thing and why this, I guess, resonates with me so much is that's kind of the mental thing that I was doing early in my diagnosis. I was saying, "Okay, you have good days, you know, you don't have this. You're having really good days," and that was really a hard thing to get through because you would have a really, like, good days for a couple days, and then I would have either out of the blue or something would trigger a flare up, and you would be on, um and then you're on your back and you're in so much pain and you can't do anything, and the reality of your diagnosis sets in, and it's such a mind screw. So, if you're having that internal dialogue and then that external dialogue, it's it can be devastating. Um, so if this little girl who's what, I think she was 9 or 10 at the time, I can't remember, but she was a little girl, she was separated from her mother, she was being told, "You are faking this," because she had lost the ability to walk. I mean, when your legs turn in, you lose muscle tone, you know, you I it's not in your head, but you're being told it's in your head. You have a good day, you can stand some sensation, you can stand things, and then you're being told, "You are faking it, your mother is abusing you, you are able to do this stuff, why aren't you walking? You are a faker and you're a liar and your mom's doing this to you, and you are having to deal with this for 3 months." It's, again, allegedly a tit punch to everyone, I'm just saying, would be, my would be my adjudication, but this is why I'm not a judge.
Upon realizing their error, for the next 3.5 months, they took every step in the world to attempt to force the Kowalskis to agree with the wrongful diagnosis. Maya Kowalski was falsely imprisoned and battered. She was denied communication with her family. She was denied communication with the outside. She was told that her mother was crazy. She was told by social workers that one in particular, she would be her mother. She was put into a room and left for 42 hours with the commode just out of reach because the hospital wanted to prove that she could actually get up and walk. So they wanted her on video, this is a surveillance room, to get out of bed and then go over to the commode when nobody was watching. Instead, she defecated on herself. For 42 hours, she was kept in that room, denied access to anyone or anything, under the false assertion that it was an EEG exam. Maya was repeatedly battered by nurses and social workers who were trying to prove that she did not have CRPS. Things were done such as coming in and patting her on her leg. They were hugging her.
Okay, let me just stop here, and I want to really, really, really illustrate to you why that is so fucking horrifying, and yeah, I'm cussing, but okay. When he says patting, I want you to think taking a hammer, a sledgehammer, and swinging it onto your leg, okay? When he says hugging, I want you to think getting constricted by a boa constrictor. When he says, "Part of my therapy when I'm in physical therapy is to get, a towel rubbed over my leg." Do you know that on physical therapy days, when I was going to physical therapy, I would basically just cancel the rest of my day because I know I'm going to have to do this. It's part of desensitization. You have to do this. This is part of getting your body used to this because your body goes into full out effing freak out mode. Okay. You have to do this. As as an adult, I know that this is going to happen. I know how much it's going to hurt. I go in knowing how much this is gonna hurt. These absolute, "Oh, no, I can do this also, and we can do the Delphi thing, that's fine. I'm just doing this right now because the freaking Gareth thing is we can do the, Delphi thing. I've got the weekend to do that." Um, so right now, the current thought is that you have to desensitize the nerve. You have to get the nerve used to it, to the kind of hypersensitivity. But we can do the Delphi. I have a couple things in the works, so we can do that at noon, and then we can do longer stuff on the weekend, if that makes sense. Yeah, on really bad days, a gust of wind, Mr. Mo has had to come in and turn off the fan or take off. I have 2 special blankets. If anyone has ever been in the military, the whoopee, I've stolen Mr. Mo's whoopee, and there's a special blanket that I found from Amazon that's very light, but those are the 2 that I sleep with. And I have a mountain of pillows because one will work one day, one will work the other. But that's what I want you to imagine because it's very hard to explain, but what they are basically doing to this child because they don't believe her, because they don't believe the doctors, is putting her through so much pain and telling her she's crazy. And I can't with these people.
Against her will. Took her down to the chapel, sat her on the lap of one named Kathy Beatty, who told her that she would be her mother. Her mother
Okay,
was,
and that's just
you know,
creepy.
crazy. And that she needed a mother, and that social worker would be there. Maya was kept from her family and friends. She was denied access to her priest. She had what they called religious artifacts, such as holy water, uh, her prayer book, her rose.
So, from what I gather, and you can watch the documentary on Netflix, and not that I encourage this, but I guess there are, if you are computer savvy, there are high C places that you can go to watch documentaries and all other sorts of places. Um, what I gather is that the doctor that was part of DCFS and uh, the representative for the hospital did not believe in complex regional pain syndrome and the use of ketamine. And again, ketamine has, the use of a ketamine coma is is rather controversial. They had to go to Mexico. I mean, it was very expensive. It's you know, if you were a just regular medical person and you didn't have training, especially in complex regional pain syndrome, I could see why, if you looked at a chart and you saw ketamine and it would give you pause. You'd say, why on earth is this child on ketamine in such a large dose? Why on earth is this child here? And the mother was very forceful. The mother, had as the advocate for her child after going through so much BS trying to get her child diagnosed, she was very forceful. She said, "No, this is how you need to do this. This is how we have it done. This is what works." Very forceful and very kind of aggressive about how, um, things needed to be done. And the staff were very turned off by this. So you have 2 strikes against Maya and the mother already. You have the fact that she's coming in with something that they've never heard of, that there's ketamine, and that the mother's very forceful, and they automatically think Munchausen by proxy. So and then you have this doctor who comes in and says, "Yeah, it definitely doesn't sound like CRPS, it sounds like Munchausen," and they sort of do all these steps, and when they realize, "Wait a minute, yipes," they just say it seems like they kind of just CYA.
Rosaries taken from her on the belief that her mother was controlling her over religion. She was denied access to counsel, at least insofar as having the ability to actually meet with her attorney without people listening in at the door. All of her phone calls were monitored. Her iPad, computer were taken away because she was told she might be, this is a 10-year-old, cruising internet sex sites. Maya was denied the comforts of her friends and her family throughout her stay there. On another occasion, again, to try to show that Maya did not have rather significant symptoms of CRPS, which you'll see are these small little red, angry lesions that appear on different parts of the body, underneath the arm, along the arms, sometimes on the legs, sometimes on the back. And you'll see photos here in a moment. But in order to prove that she didn't have one, she was systematically stripped and photographed against her will and without any authorization from anyone, least of all her parents. They continue to accuse the Kowalskis.
So Maya's pain seems to be nearly all over her body, and then it kind of went to her legs. You can see her going from a vibrant kind of child to overnight, uh, just being in a wheelchair, being unable to walk, being unable to raise her arms over her head. It's debilitating when it happens to children. I as much as I whine and I grieve the loss of a lot of the things that I can do, I can still walk. I can still walk around even with a limp and stuff like this. I mean, Maya was confined to a wheelchair and could barely move her arms. So she went from being fully functional to barely functional, and when it happens to kids, it's debilitating. Uh, yeah, I would recommend everyone watch the documentary or on YouTube, they have some pretty good, videos about CRPS in kids, and it really shows just how debilitating it is. Now, I believe this heifer back here, in the this I believe now I don't allegedly, if I remember the documentary, this might be the doctor, allegedly. I'm pretty good with faces, if not names, and I believe that might be the doctor that was saying that CRPS was not real, because I believe she was a brunette with the, problem glasses, but I could be very wrong. It's been a while, so
Jack and
don't quote
Viata
me.
of being child abusers, even after the evidence we believe you'll conclude was overwhelming that she had CRPS. In fact, we will see whether at some point they even admit she had CRPS in this case. Yet they still, throughout this period of time, continue to accuse Beata of child abuse and Jack of child abuse, something called Munchausen by proxy, which means that you're intentionally trying to keep your child ill. It's usually a circumstance with a very small child where a mother will be like putting something in an IV or things like that. And Maya at this time was 10 years old. There is no evidence whatsoever of Munchausen by proxy. By January 13th, when Maya was finally left out of the hospital, unsurprisingly, this family was a wreck. Maya was not let out of the hospital even after her mother committed suicide on January 7th of 2017. Now, the story with Beata Kowalski is a complex one, and I'll tell you about it in a moment, but we will prove that the continued allegations that she was crazy and that she was trying to harm her own children, both Kyle and Maya, and the knowledge of the systematic abuse of her child in the hospital caused her at the end to lose completely and utterly her ability to control the maternal instinct, and that outweighed the survival instinct. In the process, they caused Beata Kowalski her life, denied Jack a loving wife, denied both Kyle and Maya a loving, caring, and amazing mother. They caused just terrific and permanent psychological injury, as one may expect, a permanent aggravation, and we'll explain the medicine behind that, of the CRPS. Now, the CRPS didn't start.
Okay, so here's what I do want to also explain. So CRPS it's part of the parasympathetic nervous system. So you have the autonomic nervous system, which is your breathing, your blinking, stuff that you generally don't think about. So obviously now that you're thinking about breathing, you're going to pay attention to it, but there are things that you aren't paying attention to right now. Um, CRPS is linked often to your emotion. So my guess is today she is going to go home and hurt like hell. Um, if you have strong emotions, if you're having stress, it can definitely lead to a flare up. That's why they recommend that you do meditation or things like that. You know, unfortunately, it's a terrible cycle because if you're in chronic pain, it can lead to depression, and depression can lead to a flare up. And, there's just it, it's a it's a tough nut to crack. But I will say that uh they there is an emotional component to it. There is that parasympathetic part of it. That's part of another reason why I got Fry. Fry is oh, you got sick. Thank you so much for doing that. That's why you don't eat stuff that you're not supposed to, right? We've had this talk before. If the feral one gives you something, do we eat that? No, we don't. But there's a reason that people get real emotional support animals because they have been shown to really help. That was part of the reason I got Frybert, because sometimes the cats will come sit next to me, especially when when I have the heating pad, because they like the heating pad. But you know, th- they definitely have shown that having animals, having different things that will help with mental, you know, keeping your, having a hobby that you love, having an activity that fulfills you, things like that definitely will help. So I can only imagine that I hope she has things that that she can turn to that will help her during this trial time, because I can only imagine that she is having a very rough time right now. But hopefully this is helping to explain certain things. Sorry to pause so much, but it If you don't have CRPS, I can imagine that it's hard to understand kind of like, as it says in the name, how complex and involved it is with all the things. But I'm going to let this play. I can still hear it in my earbud, but I'm going to take him out real quick because he did yak. So I'm going to make sure that he can go outside. And if he has to yak again, I don't have to clean the carpet before my mother-in-law comes because,
With Johns Hopkins. It started about 3 or 4 days
Oh,
before Johns
yes.
Hopkins.
No, I love you so much
The
too.
evidence will show that something that could have been a controllable, manageable disease was aggravated to the point where throughout periods in her life, she will be incapacitated. And through all of it, she and her brother and her father will have post-traumatic issues and problems that will, frankly, we'll get that into that in a moment. We've asked in this case for you to consider not only compensatory damages to try to make them whole for these terrible things that have happened to them, but also punitive damages to deter them, to punish them, and to deter this type of behavior in the future. So some of the evidence here will be directed towards that. So that's the overview of what we're trying to do. Now, how are we going to do it? First, you understand that we have really 4 plaintiffs here. We have Maya Kowalski right here. We have Kyle Kowalski, and we have Jack Kowalski. And Jack's also the parent and guardian of both of them, right? So the claims go through him. And then he has independent actions himself. And he's also appearing for the estate of his deceased wife, Beata. And each of them have causes of action, some of them combined. Now, this historic case has been going on. It was filed in October 2018. I tell you this because the facts, key facts in the case, began several years before. But through the course of time, we've taken an immense number of depositions. We have found audio tapes, videotapes, surveillance tapes, a lot of evidence for you to review towards proving these allegations. The core claims, again, are medical malpractice, which is that the defendants failed to meet the standard of care. And we will prove that through expert witnesses. That they failed to identify CRPS, which is also known, by the way, as RSD, is the older name, reflex sympathetic dystrophy, now known as CRPS. Okay. They failed to identify it at first, and then they misdiagnosed it. And then once misdiagnosing it and realizing they misdiagnosed it, the evidence will prove they went about a system to try to get the Kowalskis to admit they were right. Battery, I talked about. False imprisonment of Maya on multiple occasions. Intentional infliction of emotional distress is where you do things so outrageous that they cause damage and injury to a person. In this case, a suicide. In this case, traumatic disorders, depression, a multitude of emotional problems and issues. We've alleged fraud in that they intentionally deceived or attempted to deceive in the proof of the matter. We also alleged fraud in that they billed $536,000 for the treatment of CRPS and yet never treated her for CRPS and took multiple positions, especially to them, especially to Maya, that she did not have CRPS. Yet they billed over $500,000 to the healthcare provider and the Kowalskis for the treatment of it. Beata Kowalski was born in 1973 in communist Poland. You may recall that the Berlin Wall came down in 1988, and in 1990, within a couple of years, she was able to escape Poland at the age of 17 and come to the United States. She also had a couple of relatives here already. So she made it over, stayed with relatives in Chicago, and got her AA in nursing, and then her BS in nursing, and then added to it 2 or 3 other specializations. And then eventually, and we'll go to this in a moment, ended up an infusion nurse. Jack Kowalski was born in 1961. At the time all this went down, so Maya, let's see, Beata would have been 44 and would have been 50 today. Jack is 62 at this point. Jack was born and raised in Chicago. He's a firefighter and paramedic for over 28 years. Rose to deputy chief, one of the Chicago fire departments. He donated time during the post 9/11 recovery to help. He also worked during Hurricane Katrina during the recovery effort. And we'll have some video, I think, about several saves Jack made. One in rather dramatic of a wall collapsing right after he got some people out of the building. For 9/11, he designed a license plate for 9/11 firefighters, the loss. That's, I think, still in use. And he insists on distilling what he further insists on calling wine, which you will not have to try through the course of this case. That was a joke. Well, I'm sorry. It's just not. So Jack and Beata met in Chicago, and they were married on a cruise in Jamaica in 2004 with friends. Beata became stepmother to Jack's daughter Corinne by a prior marriage. They were married, like I say, in 2004. They got along tremendously. There was a lot of mutual interest. One of them, scuba diving. Jack was, as we say, a firefighter. Beata was a well-trained nurse working for Loyola University Medical Center in the cardiac catheter lab. Maya was born in 2005. Beata began working for CVS Coram as an in-home infusion nurse, which gave her a little more flexibility in terms of raising a family. And then Kyle was born in 2007. Interesting story there. Kyle was born with thrombocytopenia, which is low blood platelets. And because they needed blood, Beata's blood specifically, but because she had just had a child, she could not give the blood. Beata got up, checked herself out, went to a hospital down the street, gave the blood, collected the blood, came back to the hospital, checked herself back in, and gave the low platelet combating blood to her baby son. The couple moved to Florida in 2014. They already had some family down here. One of Jack's brothers lived here, lived near them. And Jack was able to retire after, I think, 25 years in the fire department. And Beata was able to transfer positions down to CVS Coram. And she developed and had wonderful patients throughout the area here. Jack started applying to become a FEMA representative using his experience as a firefighter. That plan, as we'll see, was interrupted by what happened here. Maya, growing up a typical healthy kid, she had some asthma and allergies, as a lot of children do, but nothing that wasn't controlled with the usual. She enjoyed ballet, gymnastics, figure skating with her mom. It's a very big thing in Poland, figure skating. And so Beata spent a lot of time with Maya towards that. And then Maya and Kyle enjoyed fishing in the backyard. Now, Kyle has majored in being skinny for most of his life, although we're finally seeing him put on a little bit of weight, loves fishing.
I mean, I know it's risky to have jokes, but I think this guy is more conversational. I think this lawyer has been with them for years, and I think he knows his clients. I think, to be honest with you, I think he knows how rough this is gonna be on the family, and he knows as soon as, whichever look, I'm gonna be real honest with all y'alls. I am not gonna be non-biased. Oh, welcome before I go. Hello and welcome. I think you're new here. I don't think I've seen you. So welcome. But uh look, I'm gonna be real honest. Most of the time I try to say I am going to be non-biased. No, I am going to have all the bias. Uh so when they put the jerkwad, uh I will have to do my investigation, but I do know that as far as their characterization of the CRPS, and if they have documentation of what they did to Maya as far as trying to test her CRPS and, putting her in a room when she couldn't walk and making it, you know, making her defecate herself, making things, testing her, touching her, that kinda thing, you know, I believe that they were all the petty. I've just seen too many times where, the Department of Children's Safety have done more damage than good, especially with stepping in and really not knowing anything about medical cases that they are unaware of. So it's look, I'm gonna go ahead and just say I have a bias, and I hope the states get sued, all the sued. So, possibly they were completely in the right and I'm just biased.
Fishing. And the new house in Florida they had over in Stonewalk, is that right? Has a pond out back, which is very handy. Now, on July 3rd, 2015, and this is a photo of the July 4th party, Maya started to feel a little bad. She apparently twisted her ankle in the gymnastics accident, and or just from doing gymnastics, I guess. And then on the 4th, during all the festivities, Maya simply collapsed on the floor of the kitchen, and I think you'll hear Uncle Bob, her uncle, say she made a noise that no human child should make. And almost immediately had extraordinary pain, which developed over the course of the next 3 or 4 days to the point where it was extremely difficult for her to even walk. This was completely mysterious to everyone. She also had extremely rough coughing fits, which we'll have some, I know we'll have audio of, may have some video of too, so you can see where these came from. These were not, these are from deep within. Um, she was taken to the ER, and then the initial diagnosis was allergic reaction, reactive airway disease. There were multiple theories, but Maya was not getting better. And on July 6th, it was her first inpatient admission to Johns Hopkins. Now, at this point, Maya could barely walk, and she was brought in, testing done. Of course, the parents and her brother are going nuts because they cannot figure out what's going on with her. And she is complaining of being in extreme pain. And so Beata, the nurse, gave a full history of everything she knew to that point, which really wasn't much because it had only been a few days. Johns Hopkins really didn't have much of a diagnosis at that point, although they thought maybe some of the steroids that Maya took from her asthma might have been, causing some reaction. So her first consult with Suzanne Jackman from Johns Hopkins notes low cortisol level, muscle pain, and muscle weakness. Says the pain and weakness may be steroid-induced myopathy. And by this point, Maya, by July 12th, was discharged in a wheelchair. So she came into Johns Hopkins the first time, walking with difficulty, left in a wheelchair. And the diagnoses at that point were secondary to steroid use, generalized muscle weakness, habit, cough. Steroid myopathy is interesting in this case because I think one of the issues may be about the amount of ketamine it all eventually took to control
Yes.
Maya's pain.
Yes.
And something I think you're going to find is that steroids that she takes for her asthma actually have a component that breaks down ketamine pretty readily. We'll get into that a little further and have some experts talking about it. And Maya, like every victim of CRPS, had good days and bad days, but her legs continued to wither. The second admission was July 17th through the 20th, an inpatient admission, again, to Johns Hopkins. There's a history and a physical, presents due to even more increased pain, now moving from her legs to her arms, her back, her stomach, her neck, and head. The differential diagnosis, myopathy, myositis, and now we start in with psychological pain conversion because they cannot figure out why this child has this degree of pain. In other words, no clue at this point. So as part of the treatment, they suggest that Maya be taken somewhere else, TGH, Tampa General Hospital, for therapy. They thought maybe physical therapy would help the child. And as part of that transfer process, they sent Maya's history and physical notes to TGH, and then had a phone call informing them that they thought this might be conversion disorder, this might be mental. So the first time any of these other doctors heard anything about Maya Kowalski, it was with an initial possible diagnosis that it was all in her head. The child couldn't walk, and certain symptoms were coming to the forefront by this point. Now, because Johns Hopkins couldn't figure out what the heck was happening, Maya was taken by Jack and Beata back up to Lurie's Children's Hospital in Chicago. Now, this is her former home. It was a familiar place. Lurie's had treated Maya for this asthma previously. They thought, well, let's take him back and get a second opinion. And so, and Johns Hopkins was aware that patients were going to seek a second opinion and contacted and talked to them about their theories. The doctors in Chicago couldn't figure out what was going on either. So Jack and Beata proceeded with Johns Hopkins' recommendation to take him to Tampa General. Again, the doctors in Chicago thought, well, it could be steroid myopathy, it could be generalized muscle weakness, or maybe it's all in her head, but nobody made a diagnosis of that. She went to Tampa General Hospital, and TGH, as I said, already had Johns Hopkins records. Now keep this in mind. Facts will show they already had the records. They already talked to them about what Johns Hopkins thought. All right. So Maya had inpatient comprehensive pediatric rehab and physical therapy and occupational therapy for the steroid myopathy. Now, the reason this is important is that
Yes.
before there are
So
certain
this
treatments
was
that you get for CRP.
so yeah, this was after going to several different doctors. So this was prior to her being diagnosed with CRPS. This is the entire rigmarole that they went to find out she had CRPS. So first they thought, okay, well, maybe she's taking steroids. So let's get the Board of Truth to explain why people generally when you meet someone with chronic pain, you are generally meeting someone who has been to at least 7 to 8 different doctors and told they're crazy at least 10 times. I don't know where I have put my magic erase. Past me thought future me would see it on top of the printer. Past me thought future me was not going to be a hot mess. So she goes to gymnastics and hurts her ankle. So foot, look, I have, and that's owie. But she also has, let me see if I can do a long, look, I'm bad at, let me get, I've got wet erase markers because I'm better with lightly. I love Cheetos. I swear if the boys touch my stuff one more time, gonna run away. So she went to gymnastics and her foot got hurt. Still terrible. But she hurt her ankle. It's the 4th of July. You know, she still has asthma and she starts making the terrible noise. Oh, well, of course, you can't see it. And then she has her first doctor's appointment and they say it could be the steroids. But they're not sure. She goes in walking badly, comes out with a wheelchair. All right. So after that, she's still, not doing well. But then she goes back again for her second visit. So I've got my, oh gosh, what is it? My lapel mic or my clip mic, and I'll be working with my big board soon. So that will be good to have going. So then the next visit, the second visit, she goes back in with increased pain. Okay. And now they're starting to say it might be all in her brain. This is her brain. It definitely is conversion something or other. Yeah, so it's all in her brain, but they're like, "Okay, fine, go back up to Chicago." So her family then goes back up to Chicago. Now, they're still talking about how it could be steroids and other things. So they go up to Chicago, and Chicago, takes all this stuff. So Chicago is still like, "Hmm." But at this point, this is all still John Hopkins. So JH knows all of this. At this point, John Hopkins knows all of this stuff. So they are operating with all of this knowledge currently. And I think the lawyer is getting to the point where he's trying to illustrate that John Hopkins has all of this history thus far. So when he's trying to say, you're making all this crap up, they have all of this information. I want to get a better pen for when I have to bring this board back out.
CRPS before you start ramping up on some of the medicines that are used. So you want to see if the most basic types of therapies can bring somebody around to lower it to the point where it's livable. CRPS never goes away. It is a permanent disease. It's merely controlled. But before you graduate on to more advanced treatments, you want to go through the basics. And fortunately, they had the idea of trying PT and OT, but they did not spot that it was CRPS either. They still went with Johns Hopkins theory, that it was steroid myopathy and that maybe there might be some psychological overlay. Again, they missed it. She was evaluated for adrenal insufficiency, inpatient treatment for mood and disorder. She's given Valium and Prozac. Again, this is a 9-year-old girl, 10-year-old girl. Hospital alluded to Maya or Beata falsifying or exaggerating a fall from her bed, and missed several complaints, although they documented several indications of CRPS. However, at that point, she was there for 4 weeks, and as it discharge diagnosis says, history of steroid induced myopathy, noted as resolved by admission, gait disorder, impaired mobility, ADL, asthma, psychological factor affecting physical condition, conversion disorder versus factitious disorder versus others, anxiety disorder, myalgia. Now, importantly here, you'll see that it says resolved by admission. Well, we're going to bring in the actual physical therapist that treated her. And you will find throughout this case, the facts will show that there will be a distinct difference between what the actual people who were hands-on treating Maya had to say about how she was doing and whether she's progressing, and what was put down in the medical records. The Tampa General Hospital visit was very difficult for her. At this point, she was displaying what is known as dystonia. Dystonia is where the ligaments in your, it could be anywhere, but in this case, in her ankles and feet, were contracting to the point where her feet were starting to turn in like this. This is a clear indication of CRPS. Tampa General Hospital thought that maybe they should put some boots on her and see if that would correct her feet turning in. And we'll have some video from the physical therapist that shows Maya attempting to walk in those boots, Maya attempting over and over again with things like trying to push her leg and saying, "Giddy up, horsey." Again, remember, it's a 9-year-old girl. And demonstrating she was trying as hard as she could to walk. The evidence will show throughout this, Maya did not want to be in a wheelchair. She did not want to be one of the kids that was looking out the window while all the other kids were playing. But Maya kept getting worse, not better. And she was still in pain. And when school starts in 2017, 15, she said she was still in pain throughout her body, and she would moan and scream in time in panic. And she kept getting weaker, and weaker. Now, Maya was in and out of Johns Hopkins throughout this period of time. Okay? And there was prescriptions for opioids, again, physical therapy, occupational therapy. Nothing was working. No one had any answers. And then a patient of Beata's, one of the infusion nurse patients, said, "This may be CRPS. I have a daughter with it, I believe. Why don't you look into seeing this?" And there are doctors here in Tampa Bay area that are specialists in this. And so she went to see Dr. Anthony Kirkpatrick at the RSD Foundation, Reflex Sympathetic Dystrophy Foundation. Now, to diagnose complex regional pain syndrome, the Budapest criteria for CRPS gives us certain specific symptoms, diagnostic criteria: persistent burning in the arms, hands, legs, feet, or another part of the body, check. Multiple medical records will show she had that. Pain can be mild or severe. We have actual audio recordings of Maya moaning. You'll see and hear the child and can determine whether or not she was in pain. Swelling, sweating, all of those. Dramatic changes in skin color and skin temperature. Testimony is that Maya was constantly too hot or too cold. Now, people get too hot and too cold all the time.
So in this, now I did, my leg does qualify for the Budapest protocol, but my doctor also did, my first, was it physiatrist also did a triple bone scan or a nuclear bone scan, and it did show advanced CRPS in my ankle and up my leg. So what I will say is Um, my foot going up my leg does turn pretty purple, which is awesome. You know, I have a superpower now. Um, it so there are sort of skin textural changes that you can notice too. I noticed them, but I kind of put it off to, now there are things that they are noticing that they are saying that are possible links between injuries and getting CPRS, such as having casts that are too tight or boots that are too tight. And, I think they are telling doctors with injuries to not put cast or boots that are too tight, um, here lately. I don't know if that's, new general information that's being pushed out by the RSD or CRPS Foundation, but that is something that they're maybe thinking there might be a link in. So I had discoloration that started on my foot, almost immediately, but some people have kind of their skin starts to look rather leathery or discolored, almost like I said, leathery. Some people have a decrease of the sweat glands or, uh, an either increase or decrease in the temperatures. So, y it was weird because I would ask Mr. Mo constantly when I was first diagnosed, because like I said, my foot constantly feels like it's burning but cold. I would be like, "Is my foot cold? Is it cold to the touch?" Because it would feel freezing to me, and he'd say, "No, it's actually rather warm." And your body's actually surging blood to the area because it's trying to heal it. So, it will actually but in your brain, it's actually a thing, and of course not, no. Sal, why would there be a live stream? It's only, Thursday. Oh, Lord. But, yeah, so the Budapest protocol is pretty good. Sometimes CRPS does not I also have, swelling. That's why the Birkenstocks are so great because sometimes on a very bad day, I can, my foot can go up a size to a size and a half, so the Birkenstocks are adjustable, so that's good. Uh, so, yeah, I don't know what's going on with the internet around here. I have no idea. But, so they can either use the bone scan or that. It is amazing, but yeah. And here I'm back again. Indiana sucks butthole when it comes to the internet. All right, here we are. And they finally did they put up the live thing or did I see that and I made it up in my head? It's very possible. Yeah, I have no idea. The internet just decided to go nuts for about 5 seconds, which was really weird. Yeah, that was really strange. It had hiccups for about 5 seconds. So let me, uh, get in here and backinate. So, yeah, the blurry vision, the sensitivity to hot and cold. So, for a long time, I was treating my leg and up to my I was already broken. The blue screen was my highest viewer count ever. Um, but I was treating my, broken ankle with, icing it, and it was absolute torture. I am very sensitive to cold, so I will go ahead and tell you I have everything set up. I have a mobile bedtime station, which isn't as, smexy as it sounds, sadly for you all, but I have everything ready to go, so on, cold, rainy fall days, I will be heading up my mobile, unit, from the comfort of my bed with my heating pad. But, yes, definitely, the sensitivity to cold and to heat is something that yes, is something that is definitely there, and then he's going to just speak about something that I do also have.
Again, the movement disorder like this, and then a really confusing symptom called allodynia, which is an extreme but often inexplicable sensitivity to touch. It means that on some occasions, you can come up and squeeze Maya's arm or touch her legs and get no reaction at all. And at other times, just the thought of someone coming up to her and putting their hand near her as though they were going to touch her would give off an incredible reaction, screaming, yelling.
And this is the part where I think the nurses really again, if you are not familiar with this diagnosis, if you have not had any medical training of this, it can definitely look like something that is more mental rather than an actual medical thing. It can because the allodynia is either not always there or it is delayed. Um, when the on a good day, let's say I go to physical therapy and I'm on a good day, my pain level is a 5, and the physical therapy and therapist and I are just joking, and he's rubbing my leg with a towel, and, it doesn't feel great, but, I can deal with it. I know I have a window of about 15 to 20 minutes before it's gonna go from about a 5 to a 7. Now that's just my CPRS, that's not anyone else's. I know I have learned I have that about that window before, that sensitivity to touch is going to kick in, and that's just what I've learned for myself. Now, maybe Maya as a 10-year-old has learned on really good days, I can have people touch me and, you know, nothing will happen, but on a bad, bad day, if someone gets near me, like, I love my youngest feral one to death, but on a bad, bad day, if he gets anywhere near my left side, I will cringe up and I will start to shake because eh eh I love my son, don't get me wrong, but he has all of the, gentleness of a rabid toddler on Pixie Sticks and Mountain Dew, and, and even when he's trying to be gentle and loving, he ends up being a hamster on heroin, and so Mr. Mo has learned to be sort of protective, but even Mr. Mo coming on my left side, I start shaking. Again, it's an extreme physical reaction that you if you're not used to it, you would think, "Okay, she is just spazzing out for no reason." But it's because we know that our body has we're already at a 10. We are already at a 10. We can't handle anything else. It's just you cannot take any more physical stimuli. It's I mean, I have got I have, noise canceling headphones because I don't wanna yell at the boys, but they have no inside voice. I have given birth to the loudest children in humanity, um, and even noise, lights, any sort of stimulus can be more painful because your body just cannot handle anything else when it's trying to just it's overwhelmed. If that makes any sense. I don't know how better to explain it other than that. It's like you are so focused on just surviving the next second on a very, very, very bad day that even the additional it if anyone's had a very bad migraine, um, that's kind of how I would explain it. And the boys have gotten really good. I will share one really good tip that a mom gave me that was, dealing with, I believe, cancer with small children, and she survived, and she's doing great. She's a grandma now, so, take this wisdom if you have smaller children and you're dealing either with a chronic, uh get something or other, or you're just having a bad day. This is a good tip for moms anywhere. So she had a set of magnets, and they were red, green, and yellow, and or green, yellow, and red, depending on which order you want to put them in. And since she was dealing with, being fairly sick from the treatment for cancer, but she would have several good days, she would just on the refrigerator have a red, a yellow, or a green magnet, and however she felt that day, if there was a green magnet up, the kids knew, "Okay, mom's having a good day," and, you know, that is an idea. Don't give them to me. But, if there was a green magnet on the fridge, the kids kinda knew, "Okay, mom's having a pretty good day, mom can do mom things, and, it's gonna be a pretty normal night." Now, if the magnet on the fridge was yellow, then they knew, "Okay, well, mom's maybe having a little bit more of a struggle day, maybe it's gonna be, more of a casserole kinda night that someone brought over, and we might need to help more." And if it was a red magnet on the door, dad might have to make dinner, or we might be having, something that someone brought over. That just it's, been really helpful because it's not subtle. Yeah, it's not subtle, it's, something that they can easily visualize and understand, and even my husband can understand, and then, it's very, literal.
Resistance to anyone even touching her. Reason that because of the RSD, CRPS, she would feel extraordinary pain as a result. But it doesn't happen all the time, and it doesn't mean that when you don't have it, you're not in pain. One of the experts will testify that this is sort of like, think about it as a cancer patient or someone with an intermittent disease. You may be in remission and be doing fine and look fine to everybody outside. You may be hurting like crazy on the inside, but outside you look
I
pretty
believe
good.
so. I believe
And then
so.
other times you may be curled up in a fetal position and not be able to walk, talk, or move. Also a light sensitivity. Interestingly, the Budapest criteria, which are kind of the accepted criteria for CRPS, are also listed by Johns Hopkins as there. diagnostic criteria for CRPS, right? So she goes and sees Anthony Kirkpatrick, Dr. Kirkpatrick, who you'll meet. Now, notice on the photograph, see the feet there turned in? Notice the lack of muscle mass on the legs. She's in a wheelchair, obviously, and that's sort of a attempted smile, but she's got sunglasses on. Now, why is the child wearing sunglasses inside at the doctor's office? Because she has a sensitivity to light caused by the CRPS. So Dr. Kirkpatrick went over the entire full history, list of symptoms and therapies tried. He did objective testing, including pain threshold test, range of motion test. We'll actually have the videos from before and after where you can see that before the treatments she eventually had, and a part of the issues in this case, she could barely get her arm up to here. And then you'll see after the therapies that they ultimately complained about, that she can put her hand completely over the other side. And the diagnosis was CRPS. Now, Dr. Kirkpatrick did not say, all right, let's just go into some heavy duty pain meds or anything else. Again, he said, let's try some physical therapy and what's known as warm water therapy, which is essentially where you use a very warm pool or bath or something, and you do it in there to loosen up the muscles. A little different, but again, physical therapy.
Okay, so there is a difference between a therapy pool and a lap pool. Now, I believe it was $500,000 that the hospital sent the bill, that the code for the bill, the medical code, the billing code, listed complex regional pain syndrome. Of course it does. Dingle hoppers. Now, in my guess is that she was in an ACHI or a therapy pool. Now, are probably more of them down in Florida than up here in Indiana because they're much more awesome. They can be anywhere from 90 to 100 degrees. There is a reason that your lap pool is about 70 to 80 degrees. You would overheat if you were trying to do your laps in a 90 to 100 degree pool. But if you are dealing with CRPS, fibromyalgia, any of that kind of thing, and you are doing physical therapy in the pool, having it be that warm is actually very therapeutic. That we kept the water that temperature at the physical therapy pool that I went. We actually had an RSD patient when I was working as an assistant at the physical therapy pool. And actually, one of the things that we had her do, it affected her side, I believe her left side. Just walking around, letting the water hit her right there was part of the physical therapy. So it's part of the things that I'm working up to doing is getting brave enough to go to my local YMCA, which I know has the water not at the correct temperature, but after the first initial spasms, my leg will acclimatize to the water, and I don't want to have to go to the San Francisco of Indiana to deal with their heated pool, mostly because I hate Bloomington. No offense to any listeners who live in Bloomington, I just hate that town. Look, the weirdos on electric scooters who cannot see a giant Ford Transit that is red, it is beyond me. So, what I will say is I have seen patients walk in when I used to work in physical therapy in the hot water, walk in crippling pain and walk out feeling much better. So I will say that if we had the money and it didn't cost a crap ton to run, I would get a hot water in-ground, sauna pool, but those things cost a crap ton to run. And until I have my own geothermal pool, I will not be running one.
Therapy. He did not recommend out of the box any sort of pain meds. That didn't work. And that's when he introduced them to a revolutionary use of an old drug called ketamine and the ability to
Okay.
break the
Well,
chain. See,
all right. Thank you.
CRPS involves a problem in the pathways between the pain sensors in different parts of the body and the brain. Usually, when
Could she
someone
look
injures
any more
themselves, you
bored?
sprain a finger or something out, it hurts like heck.
Could their
But
entire
over
legal
time,
could the
right, it
state's
starts hurting
entire
less.
legal team look any more bored? Look, y'all, as I already told you, I am going to be super de duper biased, like all the bias. But could they all look any more bored? I mean, this dude's looking at his um s- semi-new bald spot over here is looking at his LinkedIn profile. This guy just looks confused. She looks like she's tired of life, and this guy's just sneering. Look, as I already told you, I'm going to be super petty on this one. Do not come here for unbiasedness. I will make a petty patch today. I will find a, I will use some of the glitter letters I didn't use for my tinfoil hatness, and we will make a petty patch, and it will be all over. I know this guy looks confused as hell, like he just tried to figure out if he's in trigonometry class. Like, I, is it the right trial? So as I said, I will be full on petty. I make no promises of unbiasedness, or as Daryl Brooks would say, biasedness.
Less and less. And pretty soon after a while, you just kind of forget about it. That doesn't happen with CRPS because of a problem as yet not understood, which is why we don't have any cure. The pain relay, the circle, the loop here of feedback is getting bigger and bigger and bigger until what was
It is
once
in
a
fact
tiny
a
little
Tackett and Tacit
fracture
agreement.
or a
I
tiny
did
little sprain
both.
or whatever
A
you want to call
Tackett
it turns
agreement,
into something
a Tic Tac
that is the
agreement,
worst
if you
pain
will.
known to medical science. I'll talk about that in a moment. And
It has been known as the suicide disease, and in fact, it is. I, look, guys, I'm not going to lie to you. This is when it is bad. I mean, I have joked with my lawyer friend, my local lawyer friend, who is not Salbert, my not identical twin. Um, I'm like, okay, so if Mr. Mo knocks me unconscious, but I have signed a waiver that he's allowed to do it, is that considered assault? And she said, yes, it still is. And I was like, well, that is unfair because I have a paper here saying I can. Um, I mean, it does get that bad, but the medications that you're offered, the side effects are just as terrible. Uh, I have chosen not to take every it is everyone's choice how they choose to manage their pain. I'm gonna say that right off the bat. I choose not to take the opioids. I don't like the way they make me feel. Uh, I Okay, I will tell you a funny story, and then I'm gonna probably click off of here so I can take Mr. Friberto out before I, start the, Delphi case, and then we will probably pick this case up probably, I'll figure it out, probably tomorrow afternoon, I don't know. We'll figure out when we're gonna pick this up. I will look at my schedule, and we will figure it out, and I will announce it on Twitter and in Discord and all the other places. But it is story time. The one and only time I took the pain medicine given to me by my pain doctor. It was a terrible, terrible day. I was by myself with the youngest, most feral. The youngest, most feral. And I made him very, very mad because I told him if I took this medicine, I could not let him go outside because I was aware that this medicine made me very, very tired and not very aware. So he would have to stay inside and kind of stay in my room so I could keep track of him. I am probably not. I will try to join you on your stream, but my mother-in-law is supposed to be getting in around that time. I will try, but it may not happen, but I'm going to try. This week has been all of the week, if that makes any sense. So, uh, youngest most feral was most unimpressed with this idea, and Mr. Mo was in and out of the house because he was working on getting stuff ready to put sheetrock up in the room. So he was going to Lowe's, coming back, checking on me, checking on the youngest, most feral, because he did not want to go to Lowe's with his dad for some reason. Now, during this time, Griffin, for some reason, decided that Loki, I don't know if you've ever seen Loki, but he needed a haircut because, of course, he did. And we found scissors. All right, so Loki is the orange fat cat. This is my mobile Mo station that I would use when I was listening and not streaming because there's a fireplace right in front of that. So I would use my big giant human dog bed and I would just lay in there with my giant heating pad in front of the fire, do my cross stitch, hang out with the cats who were just really with me because of the fire or the fireplace and the heating pad, and listen to you guys while I was playing around in the chat and, hang out with the cats. So that's what I used to do of a day. Now, because he was being an absolute jerk face, he decided to give the cat a haircut. So I wait and then put the hair that he had cut from the cat under my chin. So he arranged it very nicely so it looked like I had a beard. So I had a neck beard of cat hair. At least it was ginger, so it matched a little bit. So I wake up about 2 hours later because this stuff knocks me the hell out. And I start screaming for Mr. Mo. And Mr. Mo runs in, and I was like, "Did I shave the cat while you were gone?" And so, again, in things that you never thought you'd have to yell out as a parent, I had to ask Griffin why he gave me a cat hair beard. And he said he thought it looked funny. And, it's like you can't argue with him because I'm sure it looked hilarious as he's just piling up cat hair beard on my, sleeping body. I'm sure I looked hilarious. I'm sure I looked like one of those guys where you used to take the iron filings and magnetically moved it, nearer. So both Mr. Mo and I are trying to yell at Mr. Feral, youngest feral child. And it's just like, things I never thought I'd have to yell out loud. Like, we do not give the cat's haircut and then put the cat's fur on mommy's chest to make her look like she has a beard. We do not do that. That is not what we do. It's not a good boy. And he's like, okay. So I was like, do we ever shave the cat again? It's just like, you know. So I am going to close this down. I'm going to take Mr. Friberto out, and then in about 20 minutes, I'm going to be joined by Mr. Nicholas Starro, and we are going to go over the Delphi case, the new memo that's come out. And I do want to warn people that this is the crime scene section. So this is going to be, pretty intense. And I do not fault anyone if they want to be part of the replay crew and, maybe not watch it live. Uh, well, Nicholas is fairly sure he has Viking blood in him, so I'm just gonna start calling him Odin. Although maybe not Odin now because of the Delphi case. I'm gonna have to figure out something. I call him I call him Finkelstein, but I don't know that that's that's right. But I will see you guys later. I will try to maybe do I will try to get on Sal and Excited Utterances stream with them since I got none of Gareth Pursehouse's stream done at all today. So we will try to do that, and then tomorrow, hopefully, they will have their footage up at some point. Yes, I do call him Finkelstein. He does. It sounds like one of the gnomes that Bobby Hill had to give Peggy after he broke the gnome. But I will see you guys in a couple minutes. I'm going to take Fry out and get him some water and food, and then I will be back to do some Delphiing, if that's a verb. I'm making it a verb. I'll see you guys later. Bye, guys.